Well, look, yes. There will be a fifth part of the United States, Civil War brewing. Who would have thought it? Well, you could see it coming, because everything that is happening is nonstop, and the truth is that this news that I have to show you today, it is really necessary that I show it to you. You will say, why? Well, today you are going to see it, but certainly seeing today's conference, whoever says that the beliefs of the pioneer Adventists were a lie, were an error, were a deception, and that they are the same prophecies that we continue to maintain in the message of the fourth angel, whoever says otherwise will uncover by himself who he serves. Be attentive to every news that we will show today, but be attentive because truly the prophetic fulfillment is already being prepared in full, and the time is very short. The first thing we start with today, once again, remembering all this saga of conferences that we are presenting, are subsequent to these that we presented previously in North Carolina, with the title, Civil War in the United States and the Second Coming of Jesus. As a result of all this, more things have been emerging, and everything points to the fact that this is really going to be so, but there is also a whole process that is going to lead to another great question that is the key for what is to come for the people of God afterwards, and for the world, of course. Well, we start with this news. Trump on the attack. I was lucky, God was with me. Once again, we see the religious component that all this is having, which is going to lead once again to that return of Christianity, in quotation marks. Look what he went so far as to say. At the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, former U.S. President Donald Trump shared with a group of supporters his impressions after surviving an assassination attempt with a gun last Saturday during a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. This has been our best campaign, and then I got shot. How did that happen? Said the Republican candidate for the November elections, amid shouts of support. But I was lucky, God was with me, I'll tell you that. That's why they call it close call. Recall Trump, who described what happened as something unbelievable and horrible. Trump, who appeared at the forum with a bandage on his ear that grazed one of the bullets, admitted that an experience like this changes in many ways your attitude, your outlook toward life. And I think, honestly, you appreciate God even more. Really, because something happened. Something happened. Not that it was pleasant. Not that it was a complete blunder. But it was pretty terrible that that could happen, said the politician. We realize all this leads directly to a religious question, and not a small one precisely, but moving multitudes who are watching what he is saying, in short, who are accepting, believing that really all this is going in this direction, because he is a chosen one of God, in short. Let's continue, because now videos are appearing, and we are going to show you some of them, which give food for thought. Here it says, who we impact, financial freedom for teachers, and Thomas Crooks appears in Black Rock. Is this guy the one who shot Donald Trump? They say no, because you know that this group of financial investments, which moves so many things, but so many things in this world, is where this guy also participated. Let's see the video. Well, you see, it is not a montage. Moreover, now they say that the video is already removed by Black Rock, so that this guy is not seen being precisely associated with them. Well, let's continue. Another video, and this one suggests that there could have been a second shooter. Look closely, because in the images, here you have it in the frame. This is at the end where Donald Trump was, all the public. But so that you understand me, the shooter was on the left side, as we see the images. In the middle would be Donald Trump, and further in the background would be these people in this stand, following what was being done. So look, let's see where you see the impacts. The video was repeating some frames. But basically, it was so that you could see the line of the impact, which evidently was not in front of the people, but from behind. How can this be? Anyway, there are more and more enigmas around all this, and it is certainly not surprising that there are so many people who say so many versions of the same thing, and that some say that everything is conspiracy, either from one side, or from the other, or from Trump himself, or from the rivals, or who knows how many other things. In short, the fact is that the events, what can be shown is what there is, from here on. To know the truth of all this, it will surely cost or will be practically impossible to know, but the fact is that all this has happened. And what really matters to us is not to know who is really guilty of this and so on, but the consequences of this, whether it was self-managed or not, and the consequences are all that we can already see coming, and that we had already announced so long in advance, thank God, because the prophecies were clear. And I am talking about the prophecies. Yes, biblical prophecies and the prophecies that the prophetess of the Lord, Ellen White, ended up writing also, giving details, and that we have already been able to show in those lectures in North Carolina. And more things that we will show in the conferences that soon, God willing, we will do in Chicago, yes, precisely the place where Biden and his people will be, and we will practically coincide. The big difference is that we will have a room for about 40 people, and they will be thousands. They will come from all over the United States, obviously. A few telling God's truth about it, and many others taking people to where you know. Let's go on, because there's another third video that we are going to show you now. Miracle, shocking new footage shows how close Donald Trump came to death, as seen in this video. Well, you can see that everything done this way, in this montage, you can see how just that movement of the head, at the right moment, is what makes the impact not good, fateful. In short, others say that no, that he touches his ear expressly, he puts it on or something that is their Hollywood type, it bursts, and blood comes out. In short, you can see that there will be theories for everything, but once again we go to what really interests us, because people stay with this kind of images that really for them is a miracle. And well, you know that there are miracles on both sides, from God and from the other, but let's continue. Because it turns out that Mr. Vigano, who has already been defellowshipped, to put it mildly, from the Vatican, excommunicated directly, he says. Vigano published his support for Trump after the attack and accused the subversive diabolical power of the international deep state. Former Nuncio Carlo Maria Vigano posted his support for Trump on X over the weekend following an assassination attempt against him during a rally on Saturday, suggesting that anti-globalist policies and defense of national sovereignty link state leaders who have been the targets of assassination attempts, such as Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico and Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban. Yeah, remember, it wasn't that long ago either, The diabolical subversive power of the international deep state is evident. It is there for all to see. Its crimes against God and humanity can no longer be hidden. Vigano continued, I urge all Catholics, American patriots, and people of goodwill to pray to our Lord at this time of great threat hanging over the world. Interesting, because when he makes this postulate, he comes to do the same thing as the Pope. First he says Catholics, then to whomever, patriots in this case Americans, and then he adds, and people of goodwill to pray as well. I mean, that's just like the Pope's sentences. Interesting. To previous criminal attacks on avowedly anti-globalist political leaders is now added this terrible attempt to eliminate President Donald J. Trump, Vigano wrote in a Sunday X publication. The Archbishop noted that Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico and Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban have suffered similar criminal attacks because they share with Trump a firm opposition to the New World Order and the defense of national sovereignty. And of course, at the end you start to think, if Vigano is doing this, is saying this, and the Vatican excommunicates him, is it not to polarize the whole world once again, so that there will be confrontation and then give the solution? There comes a moment when you do not know what to think, because what you really see is that there is something that is dividing absolutely everyone to generate a conflict, well, of truly global dimensions. Any excuse, whether it is the New World Order, whether it is one or the other, it could be anything, but everything is happening for this to happen. Once again, the truth is difficult to know. Fico was shot 5 times in an assassination attempt in May. Slovakia has stopped arms shipments to Ukraine, refusing to align with NATO targets in the region. Vigano has been raising the efforts of supranational entities, such as the United Nations and the Davos Forum, to establish a world government that will deny the national sovereignty of states. Well, and all this is that the curious thing is that it is true. It is what is being prepared. In short, we will see what ends up happening. But once again, we cannot stay only in taking positions for or against one or the other in this case, but go to the prophetic theme, which is what interests us, and that is what will affect the whole world. And how not? How not? The people of God before the return of Christ. Because this is the central objective of this whole question, and people do not even imagine it. I took a bullet for democracy. Trump holds his first rally after assassination attempt. Look at what he's counting now. Donald Trump began his speech Saturday by thanking Americans for their love and support after the assassination attempt he suffered a week ago. I stand before you only by the grace of God, he said. Unbelievable moment. According to the Republican politician, the attack against him was an incredible moment. No one has ever seen anything like it, and hopefully they will never see it again, he said. Trump affirmed that he will never stop working to provide a magnificent future for his people. We will fight, we will fight, we will fight, and we will win, we will win, we will win, we will win, he remarked, repeating his popular phrase he shouted last Saturday to the crowd before being led off the podium by the Secret Service. Well, it sounds like a broken record, but that's the way to get slogans into people's heads, you see. He says that he remarked repeating his popular phrase that he shouted last Saturday to the crowd before being taken off the podium by the Secret Service. You remember him, raising his fist with that angry face, while he was saying this. So fight, what does he mean? Fight to win only at the ballot box, or something else? Regarding the actions he will take should he win the election, the former president assured the Trump-Vance administration will begin to quickly reverse every one of the Biden-Harris disasters, starting on day one. He promised to end the inflation nightmare, to crush immigrant crime, to give people an additional tax cut, and to bring energy prices down very quickly. Trump also said he will bring back the American dream, and that it will be bigger, better, and bolder than ever. Paints it all pretty well, doesn't it? In a message to his opponents, Trump said Democrats have been trying to make him sound like he's an extremist, but he assured that he is actually a person with great common sense. They keep saying, I'm a threat to democracy. I say, what the hell have I done for democracy? Last week I took a bullet for democracy. What have I done against democracy? He said. Good relations with Xi. Trump also stressed that he has good relations with many world leaders, even those with whom Washington does not have friendly relations. I got along very well with the president of China, Xi Jinping, a great guy. He wrote me a beautiful note the other day when he heard about what happened, he revealed. Notice what he's saying, huh? But that's not all, because just today I was reading, I haven't linked the news here, but also because he's in full consonance and good friendship, you know with whom, with the leader of North Korea. And just today this news appeared, as it related the phrases they had between them, so nice and in such good harmony. He also denounced that the Democrats were irritated when he called the leader of China a brilliant man. She makes guys like Biden look like babies, he said. And the next day I heard, how dare Trump call him brilliant? No, okay, let's just say he's not a smart man, whatever makes them happy. No matter what they do, he's still brilliant. They went crazy when I called him brilliant, he recounted. In addition, Trump described the Chinese and Russian presidents, Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin, as smart leaders who love their country. Major deportation operation. Trump promised that as soon as he takes office, he will launch the largest deportation operation in the history of the country and restore the sacred and sovereign borders of the U.S. His plans also include shutting down deadly sanctuary cities and massively sending federal law enforcement to enforce immigration law. Come on, I guess that upon hearing all this, the large part of immigrants in the U.S. who are without papers must be trembling. But here was something interesting in the previous part that we have read now about what he says about Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin, that they are intelligent, that they love their country, that he is in good harmony with them, in spite of what they are, because it seems that he gives a margin for the others to continue doing what according to prophecy they will do, and the U.S. will not intervene. Until in the end you know what is going to happen, everything will be ruled and Armageddon will come. But everything points out that step by step, what was foreseen in the prophecy is being prepared. Here he also tells us, already finishing. He affirmed that the last presidential elections were rigged, blaming the radical left-wing Democrats, and promised that he will not allow the same thing to happen this year. Do you realize? And in November of the elections, we do not know who is going to make it, because looking at the panorama, you do not know if they are going to allow those who pull the strings from behind, that this gentleman makes it to the candidacy or the other one, we do not know, and on the other side the same. What we do know is that you can already see the panorama. It is really that whatever happens, a terrible one is being prepared. Political scientist Eduardo Vire told RT that the interests in maintaining Joe Biden's candidacy are very strong. According to the expert, his family and son Hunter, indicted in a corruption case in Ukraine, have played an important role in the effort to keep the president afloat. However, removing a candidate is not easy, he noted. And there is continual talk of such pressure on Joe Biden to step down and withdraw, even by people in his party. On the other hand, it looks like it's going to continue. Anyway, time will tell. But whatever is going to come as a consequence, whatever happens between them, will be what the prophecy says. There is no doubt about that. Here it gives us this piece of information. Michigan, which is also where he was doing the rally, is one of the crucial swing states which can determine the outcome of the presidential election. Trump won the state by just over 10,000 votes in 2016, but Democrat Joe Biden took it back in 2020, beating his rival by a 154,000 vote margin on his way to the presidency. Trump announced Vance as his vice president earlier in the week. In reporting the decision, the former president described the politician's merits, recalling that he has had a successful business career in technology and finance, graduated from Ohio State University, and served in the U.S. Marine Corps. This week, both candidates participated in the Republican National Convention held in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, giving speeches in which, among other things, they specified their policy priorities should they reach the White House. And stay tuned, because later we are going to show you some news about those policy priorities postulates, and hold on tight, because you will see how the prophecy is in front of us. Meanwhile, another news item. Trump's doctor says the bullet came within 6 millimeters away from entering his head. It's a miracle he wasn't killed. Once again, we see the word miracle. Dr. Ronnie Jackson, who was Donald Trump's official doctor when he was president, detailed this Saturday that the bullet wound he suffered as a result of an assassination attempt a week ago was in the upper part of the ear, measures 2 centimeters, and is evolving favorably. In a letter sent to the U.S. Congress, Jackson explains that the bullet came within 1/4 of an inch, about 6 millimeters, of entering his head, striking the top of his right ear. It's an absolute miracle he wasn't killed, he says. Do you get the picture? Miracle. The trace of the bullet produced a 2 centimeters wide wound that extended to the cartilaginous surface of the ear, a wound that bled significantly and produced marked swelling of the entire upper part of the ear. Since then, the swelling has resolved and the wound is beginning to granulate and heal properly, although due to the highly vascular nature of the ear, there is still intermittent bleeding that requires bandaging. The doctor details. According to him, Trump is doing well and is recovering as expected. Well, you see, this is evidence of a miracle. And since it is a miracle, it means that he is protected, as you have seen, by God, by the Virgin, and I don't know who else. Trump calls Biden sick and says he took a bullet for democracy at his first rally after the assassination attempt. Now let's look at all of this in detail, and between this and what comes next. Hold on tight. Former President and Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump joked about the political weakness of his rival, Joe Biden, at a rally in Grand Rapids, Michigan, his first after his assassination attempt a week ago. Trump, who wore a light, discreet bandage on the ear that was injured in the attack. That is, he no longer wears the bulky bandage that covered virtually his entire ear. He took to the stage in a stadium packed with supporters amid shouts of USA and fight, and, after thanking them for their support, began to throw darts at his election opponent. Notice that he says fight. Interesting. You know, there is a video that I didn't want to show you because I couldn't find the link where he actually appears. It was passed on to me, and it shows people who seem to be all dressed the same, at least that is what was seen in the images, and it was not in military attire. But instead, the video said that a room full of people, huge, they were all supporters already, ready to take up arms to support Donald Trump. I don't know if that's true or not, that's why I'm not showing it to you. But that people you've already seen so many statements that they are ready to fight, without a doubt. First, he pointed out that the Biden campaign describes him as a threat to democracy and sentenced, last week, I took a bullet for democracy. And then he disassociated himself from the Project 2025 to which it associates him, calling its creators radical right and extremist. Now perhaps you are wondering, what is this Project 2025? Well, it is what I am going to show you after this news, and pay attention because here it says, which later disassociated itself from this project, at least apparently. They are branded as radical right-wing and extremist, and you will see what they say. The presidential candidate also suggested that the elections could be stolen again, as he already advocated about the results of the 2020 elections. Bad things happened last time. We are not going to let them happen this time, he assured. Can you imagine that now they say that his rival wins? What is he going to say? Again, stolen elections, so he is telling them, fight. What is going to happen? If this is how it goes, you can see that. He then went on to propose a poll on which Democratic candidate is better if we want to win. Vice President Kamala Harris's name was met with boos, and President Biden's with cheers. I don't think we have to go much further, he apostilled. At this very moment, the Democratic Party bosses are frantically trying to overturn their own party's primary results to get Joe Biden off the ballot, he commented, later scoffing that the party has no idea who their nominee is. And the fact is that they are practically naked. Either Biden follows, or they put up someone else. They do not believe that anyone can be a real rival for Donald Trump. Anyway, we shall see. He also capitalized on his opponent's weak performance in the late June debate, after which pressure began from Democratic leaders for Biden to drop out of the presidential race. Who won the debate? Biden or Trump? He asked, eliciting shouts of his last name. This is a sick, weak, pathetic man who can't run in an election, he declared harshly. Quite a statement in, well, like he's a kid, no, but healthier, apparently he looks it. When you vote for Biden, you're probably indirectly voting for Harris, anyway, added the former president, who took the opportunity to repeat his unfounded allegations of electoral fraud or cheating in the previous election that he lost to Biden. Well, this is what the media says, and we will hardly ever know, as always, the truth about all this. Who knows? From what it says, it looks as if Biden will be retired and there will have to be Kamala Harris in his place. Anyway, we'll see, time to time. Trump, with a relaxed and visibly comfortable tone, returned to many of the campaign points he raised in his acceptance speech for the Republican nomination this week, stressing points such as control of illegal immigration and additional tax cuts. And now look, because now he's talking about Vance. It was also the first rally held since Ohio Senator James David Vance was named by Trump as his vice presidential nominee last Monday. Vance has taken the stage to introduce the former president, whose 4 years in office he praised. He instinctively knew what this country needed and how to put the interests of its citizens first, he said in a speech reported by CNN. In addition, he has charged against his rival, Kamala Harris, whom he has accused of having done nothing for the country except cashing the check. The vice president does not like me. She said something like, I have no loyalty to this country. Well, I don't know Kamala. I served in the United States Marine Corps and built a business. What the hell have you done other than collect a check? He has spat at her. Wow. The vice presidential candidate has ironized about Republicans being labeled radicals, asking what's radical about making more goods in the U.S. instead of overseas. Not getting involved in foreign conflicts because sometimes it's none of our business, and securing the U.S. southern border to stop the flow of illegal immigrants and drugs. So, if they win, it is already clear that Ukraine, if someone wants to do something there, it will have to be Europe, because the United States, it is none of our business, giving way to Russia, following what the prophecy says they are going to do, and sooner or later they will get to Israel. We want an America that works for Americans, and the only way to do that is to re-elect Donald Trump as President of the United States, he has said amid cheers from the crowd, while assuring that he will do everything he can. While also telling you that the Catholic media are already talking about Vance as a Catholic, and they are leaving him splendidly well, of course, and they talk about the fact that he may already be the second Catholic to be in that position in the history of the United States. It is that we realize how the prophecies are continually in front of us, and what we have been talking about for so many years is right under our noses, because time is running out. And now let's look at 2025, this Project 2025. This is Project 2025, the radical agenda of the ultra-conservative lobbies in the United States that even Trump is trying to distance himself. Yes, at least apparently. Look well here, you see the little poster of this Project 2025, and pay attention to what we are going to read now, because now you have what will be a prophecy fulfilled in a very short time before the whole world. Donald Trump may be the next president of the United States. It is still in the hands of the Democrats to prevent it. He is the candidate of the Republican Party. He is conservative, liberal, right-wing, but how much? His mandate, 2016 to 2020, already gave us an idea. That is why many analysts, and especially from Europe, label him as ultra-right-wing. His electoral program to make America great again includes massive deportations, completing the border wall, no race, gender, or sex in schools, an anti-missile shield to avoid a world war, or producing more fossil fuels to end inflation. No doubt these are right-wing proposals. But they could be more so. Or are they? There is a collection of conservative policy measures thought up in the possibility of Trump becoming the occupant of the White House again. The Republican candidate knows them, no doubt, but he doesn't mention them. That set of proposals is called Project 2025, an agenda so conservative that Trump does not say it is his, or simply, in order not to lose votes from the center, he is trying to distance himself from it for the moment. We will be highlighting phrases that they themselves put here, which are then repeated. The long march of cultural Marxism through our institutions has arrived. Project 2025 is the Presidential Transition Project 2025, a Heritage Foundation initiative to promote right-wing or far-right policies. As of February 2024, the project had more than 100 partner organizations. The book that brings together the latest measures they propose, edited by Paul Don and Stephen Groves, consists of 30 chapters and is over 900 pages long. Well, it's a whole postulate from top to bottom, eh? But I do not know if you have noticed what they have said here, an initiative, which is going to be useful for what? To move right-wing policies, yes, but before that it says that this project is for a presidential transition 2025. What does this presidential transition mean? Well, now you will see, and hold on tight, eh? The long march of cultural Marxism through our institutions has arrived. The federal government is a monster, a weapon against American citizens and conservative values, with liberty under siege as never before, writes Heritage Foundation President Kevin Roberts in the foreword. Look at the trend. In Europe, we are seeing how the right wing and so right wing are growing, and how they are growing, and they are having postulates, practically very similar to what Donald Trump and what you are going to see from this 2025 project as well. And it is interesting because there were many people who said some time ago when we talked about the return to morality, they said no, that this could not be, that the world would go more and more to absolute liberalism, libertinism, and so on, and so on. And we said so. And we said so because the prophecy said so, and we are seeing lately how it is changing course in Europe and in the United States in an impressive way, and in a very, very short time. Will you still say that what was written and we showed and interpreted as it was, is not so? You no longer have any excuse for not believing in the fourth angel's message. The prophecies are clear and are before us. And now we are going to continue so that you can see the confirmation of what I am telling you. The basic intention is to reshape the U.S. federal government to consolidate executive power in case Trump wins the November presidential election. Reshaping amounts in this case to giving more power to the president and reducing federalism, that is, the plurality of the nation. More power to the president, consequently, in a direct way. The federal government is a monster, a weapon against American citizens and conservative values, with liberty under siege as never before. Do you realize what he is saying? So, freedom under siege like never before, this can't go on, it has to be changed. Well, you'll see. That is why critics label Project 2025 as authoritarian and Christian nationalist. Remarco, authoritarian and Christian nationalist. I would put this Christian in quotation marks. Many see this initiative as an attempt to steer the U.S. toward autocracy. In the opinion of many legal scholars, Heritage's initiative would undermine the rule of law, separation of powers, separation of church and state, and civil liberties. Let's see why. In other words, the separation of church and state is going to end. This is what the jurists say, which is coming. The Presidential Transition Project 2025 starts from one principle: all executive power is under the direct control of the President under Article 2 of the U.S. Constitution. Its main document, the Mandate for Leadership, mentions four main objectives. Restore the family as the backbone of American life. Dismantle the administrative state. Defend the nation's sovereignty and borders. Guarantee individual God-given rights to live freely. Some proposals of Project 2025. Presidential power. Project 2025 seeks to place all executive power in the federal government under direct presidential control, eliminating the independence of the Department of Justice, the FBI, the Federal Communications Commission, the Federal Trade Commission, and other agencies. Along those lines, it proposes to reclassify tens of thousands of federal civil servants as political appointees in order to replace them with loyalists more willing to enable Trump's policies. The authors argue that the change would dismantle what they see as a vast, unaccountable, and largely liberal government bureaucracy. In other words, there's going to be a personnel change. Impressive. To get them all on the same line, Trump's line, I'd say the Vatican's. Census. The bill seeks to revive a Trump administration effort to include in the U.S. decennial census the question of whether the person being counted is a U.S. citizen. And pay attention now. Christian values. It seeks to instill precepts of Christian nationalism in government and public life should Trump win a second term. America is recognized as a Christian nation. Doesn't this remind you of what was also said about Israel, that it would be a Jewish nation, well, now a Christian nation in the USA? This is impressive. Perhaps you will say, well, it has always been a Christian nation, but how did they interpret the laws? Well, there was religious freedom and there could be Christians of all denominations, but also, consequently, everything else that was not even Christian. Well, now that the United States is recognized as a Christian nation, the rest is over. And here is what there is, and this is what some are postulating also for Europe, that we must return to the roots of Europe, to Christianity, because there is so much Islam, and so much that cannot be allowed, because they are the ones who do blah, blah, blah. Do you realize? It is the same discourse. There is someone who is pulling the strings so that the same thing happens in Europe as in the USA, and the prophecy said who would do that. Someone who is not mentioned here at all, but who has been able to move even apostate Protestantism so that this is heading towards its goal, and that power behind the scenes is the Vatican itself. And the prophecy said so, gentlemen, and it is all coming true. Identity and gender. Project 2025 attacks what it calls radical gender ideology and advocates that the government maintain a definition of marriage and family based on the Bible and reinforced by social science. To achieve this, he proposes ending same-sex marriage, eliminating protections against discrimination on the basis of sexual or gender identity. Return to morality, boy, do we have it in front of us. Climate change. They advised the future Republican president to go beyond merely rescinding President Biden's executive orders on climate change. They propose abandoning strategies to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by repealing regulations that curb emissions and reducing the size of the agencies involved. They propose preventing states from adopting stricter regulations on vehicle emissions and relaxing regulations on the fossil fuel industry. So, oil extraction in a big way, yes, and on the one hand you will say, but how can that be, if the Vatican says we have to go this other way, so green and so on, and now Donald Trump is saying, or this group, which is supporting him so much, that he has to go totally the opposite way. Again, you always generate the situation so that there's chaos, and then give a solution. But again, remember the prophecy and the Adventist pioneers dealt with it, and we showed it many years ago, how the final conflict will come over gas and oil. And this was said by the Adventist pioneers in 1800 and something. Well, if we are going to see this again, why do you think there will be a strong war in the Middle East again? Because that's what it's all about, and he who has the power, has the business. Wow, and so many do not believe how the pioneer Adventists interpreted the prophecy, and the saddest thing is that the Adventists of today also reject it, because that is how they are going. Economy. He proposes to abolish the Federal Reserve, which he blames for the economic cycle, and advocates for free banking and/or for the dollar to be backed by a commodity such as gold. He recommends moving over time from an income tax to a consumption tax, like a national sales tax. Notice a radical change on this issue. Back to the gold standard, the Federal Reserve, to hell with it. Education. To respond to what it calls propaganda woke in public schools, it proposes a drastic reduction of the federal government's role in education and the elevation of school choice and parental rights. Education, they say, should be left to the states. Pretty much. Journalism. They propose to reconsider the facilities granted to journalists who come to the White House, as well as to stop funding the public broadcasting system and national public radio, as good politics and good policy. In other words, everyone should go under his parameters. What is the Heritage Foundation? It is a conservative think tank, laboratory of ideas, founded in 1973 and based in Washington, D.C. It played a prominent role in the conservative movement of the 1980s during Ronald Reagan's presidency. Many of the policies of that term were drawn from heritage studies, including its mandate for leadership. We are in the process of the Second American Revolution, which will remain bloodless if the left allows it. Wow, what phrases! The latter offers conservative policies designed to be implemented by the federal government. As many as 9 books have been published from that mandate. The latest edition was published in April 2023 and is the basis for Project 2025. The president of the Heritage Foundation speaks of an American Revolution. We are in the process of the Second American Revolution, which will remain bloodless if the left allows it, said Kevin Roberts on Steve Bannon's radio show. Roberts interprets the phrase pursuit of happiness from the U.S. Declaration of Independence. An individual should be free to live as his Creator ordained, to flourish. The U.S. Constitution, he argues, grants each of us the freedom to do not what we want, but what we ought. For him, the key to a good life lies primarily in the family, marriage, children, Thanksgiving dinners, and the like. Of course, an approach that you can see where it all goes. Is it bad, all this that he tells us here? No, this is precious. But first we must return to this so-called Christianity, and then we must unite them all in a Sunday law, and an ecumenism. And all this to go against the people of God, who will continue to keep the Sabbath, and to maintain the sound doctrine, which they are all going to reject. And people do not know that this is being prepared, not for the world in general in itself, but Satan prepares it to massacre the people of God before the return of Christ. And people have no idea about this. A people of God, so small but still the apple of the Lord's eye, and Satan has the perpetual hatred, the sentence upon them, upon us. Heritage has had a significant influence on public policy making in the U.S. It has historically been ranked among the most influential public policy organizations in the country. In 2020, the University of Pennsylvania's Global Go-To Think Tank Index report ranked the foundation 6th on its list of the top 10 U.S. think tanks, 13th among think tanks globally, and first in its category with the greatest impact on public policy between 2017 and 2019. So, what influence they have? How close Trump is to project 2025? The proposals that Heritage puts together in its Project 2025 are not far from Trump's thoughts, but to say so, to acknowledge it, is not politically correct, even for the often correct businessman. A matter of strategy. So yes, the postulates of these people are those of Donald Trump. He says that he separates himself from them now a little bit, to dissimulate, of course. But this is what moves everything so that what has to be done is established, and this is what the prophecy says will happen. And when power is restored, you can see where everything is going to go. Members of the Republican frontrunners team have acknowledged that the project fits well with their proposals. But the scope of Project 2025's measures has caused increasing friction with the election campaign, so Trump has preferred to avoid citing any of those policy proposals. Echoing those proposals hurts the Republicans' electoral cartel, and in the U.S., news coverage of Project 2025 is growing. Therefore, he has to show that he is distancing himself. So much so that just this July, Trump has disavowed the Heritage Foundation's project. Project 2025 has long vexed Trump and his top campaign officials, despite the deep ties and allies the two entities share, write Mike Allen and Zachary Basu in Axios. Last April, John McEntee, a senior advisor to Project 2025, said they and the Trump campaign plan to integrate much of our work. But the GOP nominee has never publicly endorsed Project 2025. So from the back they are working together, but from the front they show otherwise. In November 2023, without naming Project 2025, his campaign noted that policy recommendations from outside allies are just that, recommendations. However, the Washington Post has reported on regular communication between Project 2025 and Trump campaign advisors. The candidate has gone so far as to say he doesn't know what this Project 2025 thing is. I have no idea who is behind it. I don't agree with some of the things they're saying, and some of the things they're saying are absolutely ridiculous and abysmal. Whatever they do, I wish them luck, but I have nothing to do with them, Trump wrote on his Truth Social platform. But the reality is that a huge group of former Trump administration officials have worked on Project 2025 and endorsed it. In fact, John McEntee was the director of the White House Office of Presidential Personnel under Trump and one of his most trusted advisors. And look, he says he has no idea who's behind this, and he sees it as ridiculous, and I don't know what. I don't know how much. And once again, are you going to swallow the words of a politician, as we see how they work nowadays, and more so in that country, and more so knowing who is pulling the strings behind it? Seriously? Are you going to become a supporter of one or the other? Seriously? It is better that you become supporters of God and His authentic truth, and make it known to the world before it is too late for many, and they cannot be saved. That is what we must do, and not postulate, neither here, nor there, nor stories. And as a closure, the U.S. Secret Service says it previously rejected Trump's requests for additional resources, reports the New York Times. Of this news only 5 or 6 hours ago, I picked it up before the conference started. The U.S. Secret Service said it had rejected requests for additional resources from Donald Trump's security team in the 2 years leading up to his assassination attempt last week, the New York Times reported Saturday, citing a spokesman. That is a change from earlier statements by the agency denying that such requests for the former president and Republican presidential candidate had been turned down, the newspaper said. Therefore, to lie they paint themselves, it is impressive. But of course, with all this now, logically, the normal thought, what is going to be? Well, of course, nothing additional was given to him to make him more vulnerable, and everything was foreseen for this, so, obviously, more support from all the people. To whom? To Donald Trump. And on the other hand, more division with the others, and everything goes like this. Notice that I had told you that we would not hold any more conferences on this issue, that we would leave practically everything for the conferences in Chicago, where we are going to show this brutal interaction, which there is and will be, between this theoretical Christianity and the presidency of the United States, and how all this is going to bring the people, not only of the United States, but of the whole world, in short, at the feet of Rome, at the feet of the papacy, and the work of the Jesuits, which has been undermining the United States for so many years, is about to be consummated, and so many people have no idea of this. Well, I do not know if we should continue yet. You can see that it is impossible now to say, no, I am putting this aside until that moment, because it is one after the other. Finally, the Lord will say, but once again, be clear, the biblical prophecies and inspired by God also to Ellen White, in the years 1800 and some until 1915. Leave no room for doubt as to who is telling the truth, in prophecy and in sound doctrine. If you want to believe something else, yes, as they say, it is your problem, of course, but it is about time that you all take a position. Have you accepted the message of the fourth angel? Have you done all the biblical studies? Do you accept it and practice it? You are risking your salvation. Time is running out. Everything is coming, everything. There are 7 years left for the return of Christ, 1 year less for the plagues. No one will be able to change sides at that time, and in 2028 Sunday law, when everyone will have to start definitively to make their decision, for or against the truth. Will we be prepared to endure all this if we do not make up our minds now? Let us make our relationship with the Lord fruitful. Let it bear fruit. Let it grow. Let it multiply. Let us soak ourselves in Him. Let us ask the Holy Spirit to dwell in us and help us to give the message to the world, because soon, nothing we have here will be of any use to us. Everything we have will be taken away. There will only be problems because they will impose Sunday as a day of rest, trampling on the law of God. And that is what they will want us to do, transgressing even the Sabbath. Do we learn from the history of the Waldenses how they not only did not allow or urge them to keep Sunday, but also made them transgress the Sabbath? Well, now they are going to repeat the same thing, but in a beastly way, Now decide, do you want to put anything before God, and that will separate you from eternal life, which is so near for all of us? It is time to decide, but if you accept all that I have told you, get baptized, look for baptism. We have people in many countries who can do it. Look for it in our web of the Great Deception, where it says contacts. Go to them and get baptized, and be of the people of God, who will still be a minority but will give a strong message to this world. Hardly without means, hardly without resources. But it is going to be done, and boy, oh boy, what a mess this world is going to make when the people know, the whole world, the message of the fourth angel, because Satan will all in. So far it is being restrained, but later it will be very little restrained. But there is hope because our Lord is coming back very soon, and even if we fall, by sickness, by martyrdom, by whatever, before the return of Christ, may we rise up in the resurrection, because the Lord declares us saved, and the 144,000 that are still alive. How wonderful! They will not pass through death and will see the return of Christ, but what things they will have had to go through, what things they will have had to suffer. But the Lord is coming, Maranatha 2031. God bless you.